Support for Trifles comes from listeners like you, who support us through Patreon and Substack. Bonus material, thank you gifts, and more await at patreon.com/trifles and at trifles.substack.com. And now you can enjoy some Trifles swag, mugs, notepads, and oval stickers, available in our store. Find it at ihearofsherlock.com/merchandise.
Welcome to Trifles, a weekly podcast about the Sherlock Holmes stories.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Yes, there were 3 gables, 5 orange pips, and a sign of 4, but there are hundreds of other details to pick apart in the stories.
Pray, be precise as to details.
You know the plots, but what about the minutiae? Have you ever stopped to wonder about how much money Holmes actually collected from the Duke of Holderness? Or why Watson constantly had to read the telegrams to him?
You are very inquisitive, Mr. Holmes.
It is my business to know what other people don't know.
Scott Monty and Burt Wolder will have the answers to these questions and more in Trifles.
The game's afoot.
Episode 478. Shaving. Hello and welcome to Trifles, the podcast where we get into the minutiae in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Burt Wolder.
And Burt, do you shave every day so you'll always be clean?
Well, I don't know if those two things are connected. Yes. Yes, but, considering how frequently soiled I am, I don't know that those things are connected at all.
Out, damn spot.
Woof.
There you go. Well, this is another episode of Trifles where we get into the details. And in this case, we're going to be talking about, as the title infers, shaving.
Shaving. Good grief.
I know. It's going to be a close shave here. Instances where we see individuals in the canon taking care to take those little whiskers off their face, or not in some cases. And we will talk about that habit and how Victorian gentlemen typically took care of themselves in this fashion in just a moment. I want to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, we actually have another week left on the quiz that we put forth in the beginning of the month. I think we were talking about revenge, if I'm not mistaken. Promises or seekers of revenge. We asked you to name which stories. There was a Baker Street dozen of stories that we asked you to name. We have been getting those responses back, and we will announce the winner on the next episode. So make sure you go back and listen to episode 476 to make sure you are part of that process. I think I'm remembering the episode correctly, but there's so many entries we've been getting, and it's I've lost track. But if you would also like to partake in another drawing, this is the last episode of the month, and that means we are going to be doing a random drawing from our paid subscribers to see who gets a free back issue of the Baker Street Journal. All you have to do is support us on Patreon or on Substack. The links are in the show notes if you'd like to go check that out. If you don't want to look at the show notes, just go to patreon.com/trifles or trifles.substack.com and sign up there as a paid supporter. Every month you will be automatically entered for this random drawing. So if you would like to support us in any way, we really appreciate it, and it helps keep us going toward the next episode. Okay, let's talk about shaving. The tune from Benny Bell just keeps going through my mind.
Benny Bell?
Yeah.
What's Benny Bell?
I have a sad story to tell you. It may hurt your feelings a bit. Last night when I walked into my bathroom, I stepped in a big pile of shaving cream. Be nice and clean. Shave every day and you'll always look keen.
A great American classic that somehow missed me. Luckily, I don't feel too diminished.
Well, how about we jump into the habits of Victorian shaving?
Okay. We could do that. You know, I actually know nothing about the history of shaving. I wonder what the history of shaving is all about.
Well, it's funny you should ask. We have the history of wet shaving.
Oh, we do,
From
do we?
Plowden and Fallow, British perfumers.
Well, now, wait a minute. Wet shaving. So that suggests that there was dry shaving.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because the 19th century marked a significant turning point in grooming habits. So you've got the Industrial Revolution happening, which means accessibility to fine shaving tools, straight razors and shaving brushes and creams. All of these things became essentials for the discerning British gentleman.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the steam-driven internet tells me that before the advent of razors, hair was sometimes removed using 2 shells.
Like on the Flintstones when
Yeah.
when Fred
Yes.
would put a bee inside of a clamshell and
Hey, Bonnie, yeah.
that's what I remember.
Shaving, according to the steam-driven internet, dates back to the Stone Age, 30,000 BC,
Goodness.
where early humans used flint, obsidian, and sharpened shells for hair removal. And the ancient Egyptians. Friends, there's hardly a day when we don't think about the ancient Egyptians. 3000 BC established shaving as a status symbol using copper razors. Romans popularized barbershops. And then, of course, King Gillette, which was, of course, William Gillette's royal ancestor, in 1901 revolutionized the industry but had nothing to do with playing Sherlock Holmes on stage, because he patented the safety razor.
And that's an important development.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to know is after the Romans established the barbershop, who established the barbershop quartet?
Well, this is a fellow from Eastern Europe. He was known as the barbershop Pole. And but I want to tell you, also, I found out, to adjust my ignorance here, that Alexander the Great, friends, it's hardly a day we don't think about Alexander the Great, demanded his soldiers be clean-shaven to prevent enemies from grabbing their beards in battle. How about that?
Interesting.
Well, there are great mentions of both toilet, and shaving. You know, and all of this really is, we know about Sherlock Holmes that he had, as Watson tells us very early on, a cat-like appreciation of cleanliness. And clearly, you know, he was clean-shaven. With the exception of his mustache, Watson was clean-shaven. And things occasionally do happen in the cases of Sherlock Holmes when folks are getting up in the morning, Holmes and Watson are getting up in the morning, and Watson is finishing his morning ablutions. For example, in The Three Students, we have Watson saying to us, "At 8 in the morning, he came into my room just as I finished my toilet." Now, this, of course, is the definition of toilet that relates to the old French word toile, which meant little cloth, I think. And that's where toilet came from. It came from toilette, and toile was, I think, a French word meaning little cloth. So that was, you know, and I think also that it had something to do with a like a towel or a garment or a cloth that you would put on your shoulders or put around yourself while grooming, so that you wouldn't be getting sort of hair all over the place and things like that. But, and this was an age when people did not bathe. The plumbing inside the houses didn't really permit shower baths and things like that until later in the 20th century, I think. So, that's one of the reasons why Turkish baths were so popular, because, people would, that was a real event to get that sort of massage and scrub and treatment.
Yeah. Well, that makes great sense then, because, for the average 21st century reader to see that Holmes came into Watson's room just as Watson finished his toilet, they might think something untoward is going on there, but that makes sense. Watson was finishing grooming himself at that point, which would have included shaving.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of an observation that Holmes made of the state of Watson's window, I think.
Yeah.
In Boscombe Valley Mystery. It's one of the early stories in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Holmes says he, perceives or knows the military neatness that characterizes Watson. And he says, you shave every morning, and in this season, you shave by the sunlight. But since your shaving is less complete as we get farther back on the left side until it becomes positively slovenly as we get around the angle of the jaw, it's surely very clear that side is less illuminated than the other. Could not imagine a man of your habits looking at himself in equal light and being satisfied with such a result. And that's how he knew that his bedroom, the window is on the right-hand side of the room.
Yeah. So self-evident.
Yeah. And I wonder if after that situation occurred, if Watson ran back to his room and cleaned up that slovenly part of his jaw.
Now, isn't there another reference in the cases of Sherlock Holmes where Holmes tells him he's moved his shaving mirror? Isn't there something similar, or am I just imagining that?
Yeah, I think that's the same one, isn't it?
No, he throws, in Boscombe Valley Mystery, he throws this out sort of as an example.
Perceive your bedroom, in your bedroom, the window's on the right-hand side. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that. That's a good question.
And then he goes on to say, yet I question whether Mr. Lestrade would have noted even so self-evident a thing as that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall another reference as to Watson's shaving mirror.
Well, it's something else. But it does pop up, shaving from time to time in the world of Sherlock Holmes. And in fact, it's sort of an early clue in the Valley of Fear. When, we're sort of investigating the world here of Mr. Douglas. And Holmes says, now I observe, Ames, that there's a small piece of plaster at the angle of Mr. Douglas's jaw. Did you observe that in life? Of course, now they're looking at the person that they believe to be John Douglas. And then Ames says, oh, yes, he cut himself in shaving yesterday morning.
And that cut, of course, was not evident on the body that was found. That was one of the clues. I like that. Well, we have a few clients that we can point to that showed up without shaving, and Holmes noted their degree of slovenliness. One arrived in the afternoon Said it's 2:15. Your telegram was dispatched about 1, but no one can glance at your toilet and attire without seeing that your disturbance dates from the moment of your waking. Our client smoothed down his unbrushed hair and felt his unshaven chin. You're right, Mr. Holmes. I never gave a thought to my toilet. Who was that? Do you know who that was?
Who's that? Well,
And in which story it occurs?
not Alexander. The people who come to mind are Alexander Holder, Thornycroft Huxtable. These sort of people who bundled themselves off in a very emotional state to Baker Street.
Yeah, that you're on the right track. John Scott Eccles.
Eccles. Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. Very
from
good.
Wisteria Lodge.
Yeah.
Right. He wasn't woken up in a timely fashion by the staff as he had instructed them. And he woke up to find the house deserted and his host gone. So he just rushed out and headed to Baker Street.
And of course, in those days, we mentioned earlier, I think that King Gillette patented the safety razor in 1901. But in those days, most people were shaving with a straight edge razor.
Yes.
Which, the whole operation of shaving, is a bit more involved and complicated than it is today. I mean, first, your razor had a very, very fine, sharp point. And to keep it sharp, you usually used a strop, a leather strap that was impregnated with some sort of a wax. And you would move, sort of like honing a knife, but you, in a certain way, you'd hold the straight razor in your hand, and then you would move it up and down the strop to ensure you had the sharpest point possible. And then you needed a shaving mug and soap and a brush and hot water.
Hot water is key.
Yeah, and then in those cases where you didn't have hot water coming up to the location of your bedroom for some reason because of inefficient plumbing, one of your servants would be bringing you up a bowl of hot water, or to put hot water into your shaving mug for you, in any case, and off you went.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever shaved with a straight razor?
I have not, although I do use a safety razor. I don't do the disposable razors. I have an old-fashioned safety handle and the double-edged safety razors that I insert in them. And I use a badger brush, and I alternate between soap and cream, like the actual cream that comes in a tube, not the kind that you spray out of a can, because there's more glycerin in it. But I enjoy the luxury of a nice wet shave. And here's the other thing, too. For gentlemen who maybe felt like taking a day off from shaving themselves, or had a little extra, pence to spare, they could go to a barber shop and have a barber perform the shave. And in that case, you've probably seen images of it. A gentleman reclined back in the barber chair with a hot towel on his face. The hot towel, of course, would be softening the whiskers to prep them for easier shaving as they soften up. And then the barber would apply the shaving cream or shaving soap, perhaps some oils, other emulsifying agents that allowed the lubrication of the face to get that razor to slide more cleanly over it. And I've actually had a shave like that before a few times. There's a place that Gillette used to own called The Art of Shaving. And they will gladly do a gentleman's shave for you. And any good barbershop will do that as well. And I have to tell you, you will never get that kind of close shave at home. I mean, I ended up walking out there. I couldn't keep my hands off of my face because it felt like a baby's bottom. Not that I go around feeling babies' bottoms at all, but it was just lovely to have a smooth face once again with no stubble.
Interesting.
But, yeah.
Well, at one point years ago, I did learn when I was in London. You could go into Trumpers. I was near. Actually, I wound up living near Trumpers, and you could go into Trumpers. I don't know if they still do this on Jermyn Street.
They do,
and they have barbers, and you can get that sort of a shave. And also in Manhattan, up through the 1970s and maybe even into 1980, in some office buildings, there were barbershops at the ground floor, and some of the people who went to work would start each day by going into the barbershop and getting a shave. I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely part of a morning ritual if you have the luxury of time and obviously of the expense as well. Those days seem to have gone by. But it's akin to, stopping at a diner and having a little toast and coffee or an egg on your way to the office. As you say, stopping at the barbershop and getting a trim, getting a shave, etc. Ways to ease into the day that didn't require us to rush in and be in a seat in front of a screen at any particular given time.
Yeah. Well, you'd get up in the morning in New York, get into your horse-drawn omnibus, go clip-clopping down Fifth Avenue, stop off at a barbershop, drop into a coffee shop, get to work around 11:30 or noon.
And then it's time for lunch.
Have lunch. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, but you also mentioned as we were going through the canon here of one Thornycroft Huxtable,
yes,
who arrived at Baker Street in the Priory School. His first action to open the door was to stagger against the table, and he slipped down on the floor and passed out on the bearskin hearthrug. And then he comes to, and he finds that Sherlock Holmes went through his pockets to discover who he was. But Watson diagnosed him with absolute exhaustion. The heavy white face was seamed with lines of trouble. The hanging pouches under the closed eyes were leaden in color. The loose mouth drooped dolorously at the corners. The rolling chins were unshaven. Collar and shirt bore the grime of a long journey, and the hair bristled unkempt from the well-shaped head. It was a sorely stricken man who lay before us.
Ooh.
Isn't that a great description?
Look at all the things Watson pays attention to.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, but the rolling chins were unshaven. Boy, do I feel that every morning. Okay, as promised, we have a drawing for you here. So we are putting all of the names of our paid supporters from Patreon and Substack into the bin here. We're going to give it a big spin and see whose name comes up. And it looks like it lands on number 13, and it is Leanne. Leanne, congratulations. We'll send you a note to make sure you know of your win, and we will send you a back issue of the Baker Street Journal. If you'd like to be like Leanne, then all you have to do is go to trifles.substack.com or patreon.com/trifles. Well, folks, that really seems to be as about a close shave of a trifle as you could find around these parts.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Please join us again next week for another installment of Trifles. Show notes are available on SherlockHolmesPodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and be sure to check out our longer show, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, where we interview notable Sherlockians and share news of the Sherlockian world.
You've taken my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
No one could glance at your toilet in a tower without seeing that your disturbance dates from the moment of your waking.
But you're right, Mr. Holmes. Yes, I never gave a thought to my toilet. I was only too glad to get out of such a house.